Duluth is having more mild winters and, summers are cooler. So I think that's kind of one of the reasons why people might be thinking about Duluth in a new light. But also, climate change is very unpredictable.
There's less a risk of hurricanes, floods, and wildfires. But nowhere is immune.
With increasing wildfires out west and sea level rise along coasts, many see Duluth as a place that's resilient to future changes in our weather patterns.
People are on the move and they're moving generally north where there's a cool, more moderate climate. I had been talking about Duluth for some time for a lot of different reasons.
Speaking at UMD in 2019, Dr. Jesse Keenan explored the idea of Duluth being an ideal location for climate migration.
And I study how the built environment adapts and mitigates to climate change, how demand might change, particularly for people who live in high risk areas. What's the value of your home going to be? Where should I live? And I also started thinking about not just the high risk areas, but where people might be moving to.
Why Duluth?
It's a lot of different reasons, from schools to healthcare, from parks to architecture to a university culture that exists in Duluth. All of these things were adding up to really speak to a wonderful place to live.
But it's our biggest resource that's getting the most attention.
Water is the new oil, right? And as the world comes challenged with water scarcity, we have to rethink, where we're going to live. Places like Phoenix simply won't be all that livable in the future. They're going to run out of water.
Dr. Keenan's lecture was just the start of this conversation.
Duluth has become kind of the poster child for, are people going to start moving because of climate change? And if so, where to?
UMD's Bureau of Business and Economic Research Director Monica Haynes decided to dig deeper into the issue. A mini grant from the University of Minnesota funded the initial study.
We ended up just doing a qualitative analysis, interviewing experts in Duluth in housing and the nonprofit world, and climate scientists, people around the state who kind of think about this topic a lot and are looking at this issue.
Although a lot of the research is focused on the future, climate migration is becoming a reality.
When we talk to people through our research, almost everyone knew of at least one person in their life that, maybe it wasn't their primary reason for moving, but they said, oh, it was definitely part of our decision.
People don't get up in the morning and are like, that's it, I'm out of here because of climate change. It's one of many stresses in the push and pull of how people move. Then you see places like Duluth that are pulling them. That's the push, but the pull is that, hey, here's a beautiful place that you can live that has a very strong culture.
We have seen droughts in Minnesota over the past few years. It's not like we're immune to those same weather patterns and conditions.
The experts stress that no place is fully climate-proof.
To think that Duluth is immune to, the impacts of climate change is not the case. Just because we're located on Lake Superior doesn't mean that we won't still have a lot of those same negative consequences of climate change.
Research is happening, both from a scientific perspective and a social viewpoint.
This is a very early area of academic inquiry, but we know it's well underway. We're getting lots of signals, very clear signals in the market that this is happening. So we just have to listen.
With housing availability and affordability already an issue in Duluth, many question if the city could handle an influx of people.
I think one big takeaway for me was how much equity and housing and income inequality will probably play a factor in climate migration in the future, especially because most of the people that are moving at this point are doing so in a very proactive way. They are probably wealthier, they can afford to move kind of anywhere throughout the country they like. They're usually people that are thinking a lot about climate change and, maybe have that as a concern. So they can afford to buy high-priced, desirable properties for cash